Patrick, thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
I actually picked up a sponsor for my podcast, although it's pretty good, a veteran-owned company. So I'm excited about that today. Got Your Six Culture. I'm wearing one of their shirts today. It's a veteran-owned company, and they support and want to make products that also recognize first responders. So police officers, firefighters, dispatchers, nurses, things like that. I'm trying to give them some love there. So that's
Terrific.
good. But yeah, Patrick, DC, that's got to be a monster place to live, and an amazing real estate agent from Compass. So I'd just really like to learn about you today, sir. If you want to just introduce yourself to everybody, kind of let them know background, how you got into real estate, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been full time in real estate since 2020. When everyone else decided to make a career change, I kind of followed suit. I had my real estate license in Massachusetts prior to, but truthfully, never really did anything with it. Like a lot of people, I tried to do it as a part time profession because I had a pretty extensive background in the fitness industry beforehand. But like most people find out, you cannot do this job part time, and anyone that tells you is either lying or an absolutely terrible agent. So run.
Yeah.
Um, I bought my first house in 2016, and I bought a literal crack den in Worcester, Massachusetts. It had been rated for distributing crack and some other drugs. It was a three decker, and my father is a master plumber and has all sorts of experience working in the trades. So it was a great experience to be able to volunteer as a free apprentice and figure out how to do a lot of the work, the permitting process. And at the end of the day, it took about 18 months, but we converted all three into separate apartments. It was a lovely place for me and my wife to move into, and it afforded me the opportunity to move down to the most powerful city in the country in Washington D.C. because it is a
Yep.
lot more expensive down here. So having the rental income definitely helped.
So you still own that property today?
I actually sold the beginning of COVID when all of the restrictions started going and all of the rent forgiveness. Worcester is still an up and coming city, and I was a little concerned that I wasn't going to be able to recoup some of those. And at the time, the government hadn't given a lot of protection for landlords as much as they had tenants. So I was a little nervous about potentially floating two mortgages at the time. So I sold, took advantage of that appreciation, and was able to roll those profits into a house I'm currently under contract down here for.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how's that going? Everything's going smooth on the new home purchase.
It is. I got a pretty good realtor in my corner on that, but
Yeah,
I can
yeah. It's always
definitely.
nice to have a professional in your corner.
Exactly. I will say I can empathize 110% with all of my clients right now in this market because it's one thing to advise people and walk them through. However, it's another altogether when you are doing that same thing and you can tell someone looking them in the eye, hey, don't worry, trust me, I'm doing this myself. I've taken these same exact risks. We're adhering to the same strategy and it works. So it's
Yeah,
a little bit
absolutely.
of a blessing in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, congratulations. It sounds like it's going well, and it'll all work out in the end. And that is something to be said about today's day and age. I don't think there's very many realtors actually that um, have experienced what you're experiencing, right? Like that is a unique thing for realtors to be very good at what they do, which you are. You walk everyone through step by step. You're there for them 100%, but not adding in there going, I've been just as stressed out as you guys for the last month. I promise, and it's going to be all right. Just kind of elevates uh, the credibility by which you understand the marketplace, right? It's different to know what the prices are doing and how they're moving, but it is a complete other thing to be involved in it directly. And at the end of the day, too, you're not just answering questions to a client. Wife is going, "What's going on? Are we going to be all right? Where's this going?" And now it's like, oh man, the elevated level by which I have to be confident and sure and know it's going to work out, completely different, right? And so I think you're right. Like being able to navigate through that, and you know, it's going to be okay for yourself. It'll be okay for everybody else. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different on this side because the previous homes that I had purchased and sold had been in a much easier market. And I understand that everyone's probably tired of the term "the market's going crazy." The market's going crazy, but for better or worse, this has been the last 2 years. It's most likely going to continue through this year, from depending on who you listen to. But as you know, most economists are predicting this is going to continue right through 2023. And some of the policy and procedure changes that are going through now aren't really going to have that big of an impact until rates really start to creep up and we see the trickle down effect. So we're looking at another really strong year this year, and it's just about sticking to that strategy and staying the course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you work in a great place and in a great brokerage that is defined by strategy, right? Compass is one of those places that when you go work there, in my experience with agents that I've ever worked with from Compass, like it's just a different level of real estate agent. Meaning, uh, a lot of them are seasoned professionals or came from a professional industry, and so Compass is kind of structured and built for and from what I've seen, I might be wrong, but like a working professional to make a transition to real estate, they're built to help onboard into that. And it's not like a basic level. The tools and the tricks and the trades and everything that they offer is really amazing to see as working with tons of real estate professionals all over the country. I've always had great experiences with Compass agents, and so I know you're in a great place there, but I'm sure being in DC doesn't make it even any much easier, right? I mean, you're like you said, uh, you moved to a great city. However, coming to that great city also means there's a lot of challenges. So, what kind of challenges do you think you have in your market there in DC, based off who's there and what the industry and the job culture is compared to other parts of the country? Is there anything unique that you see there, or is it pretty much the same everywhere?
Yeah, so we've got there's three primary points that lead to that are unique, that are pretty unique to the DMV market right now. One of which is the arrival of Amazon's HQ2, which is happening right across the river in the Crystal City area. And for those who aren't familiar with the DMV area, it consists of Maryland, Virginia, and DC, with everything that we really consider the DMV inside of that beltway. um, Amazon going in there and building their HQ2 is going to have a monumental impact, because when they made the announcement, you saw a lot of those property values literally overnight. Some of them doubled,
Wow.
and the squeeze that suddenly put on anyone on both sectors, whether it's commercial or residential, really put their feet to the fire. There's a lot of people that decided they wanted to capitalize on that and sell. At the same point in time, there's a lot of people who are trying to get in and around that immediate area, and hopefully buy a piece of property that can appreciate with that. And the other dynamic with that is Amazon is bringing all of these employees in as well. So there's a sense of getting people from Amazon that are coming in, that are starting to proactively look and get into what would be considered an affordable place in the market. There's a lot of moving parts that are constantly going around with that, because we're also in what's called an insulated market here. We have the federal government right in our backyard, and with that,
Yeah.
every administration change, every midterm, different lobbyists, every working body of the federal government has different layers of employees that constantly are changing over, and because of that, it's one of the more transient areas of the city. So we do, outside of the last 2 years, we do have a pretty cyclical market like everywhere else. However, the wintertime here may be considered the spring market in other areas of the country.
Okay.
It is pretty fast paced and very competitive, which, working primarily with buyers right now, can be a challenge, because the competition is very fierce, and it forces you to look at things on a macro level, on 2 and 3 week increments rather than monthly or quarterly increments, which other areas of the country tend to do. And it works for them, but it's just a little bit different because of the amount of competition, in the amount of transient residents here in DC. Sorry, I'm just going to
Yeah, I
get some
think
door.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry
that's all
about
right.
that. I took them
No,
out
you're fine.
beforehand.
You're fine. You're fine. It's okay. So I think that so the one thing that's different, you say Amazon's moving into DC, right? I would imagine, and I might be wrong. I've never lived in that area. I've visited and went to the museums in Washington, but I think I live in Texas. So compared to Texas, where Tesla's coming to Texas, Amazon has Texas is nothing but land for the most part in a lot of places. We have a lot of land in Texas, and so I think comparatively, we've put up like 12 Amazon fulfillment centers in Texas in the last 24 months.
Hmm.
Like they're popping up everywhere. And so, like, I think the difference there is like you just said, if you're someone that owns a home or you're looking to purchase a home, as soon as Amazon finds that small square they can put the headquarters in, there's no other land to buy, right? You got to buy a house. It's not like DC is prime for expanding, right? It's only so big and it's been around for so long that probably also drives it. And I mean, I would imagine that even just a normal regular buyer, someone that would be, single family, maybe first time home buyers, maybe other people like that, are you seeing that like they have a little bit more of a challenge to get into places because, as you just said, you've got the federal government there, all the branches, they turn in and they turn out by nature, a lot of those people aren't looking for entry level homes, right? And
Hmm.
so, like, is it a different challenge for a first time buyer? Do you see a lot of times they have to look in other areas, or is there still pockets there where they can find something?
There are still a couple pockets, but another challenge I forgot to mention is we have the height restriction down here. So no building can be over 13 stories in the district. There's one building, the Cairo Hotel, which has now been converted into condominiums, but that's the only thing that's above 13 stories down here in DC. So whereas other cities can build vertically, we do not have that option. So it's really pushing people out. So to your point, asking about pockets of affordability for first time home buyers, they are few and far between, and we're seeing a lot of them get pushed out to some of the suburbs, particularly on the Maryland side, because Northern Virginia, although they don't have a height restriction, traditionally has had some of the more affluent suburbs. I mean, you have Bethesda and Chevy Chase in Maryland, but the Arlington Alexandria area is almost to the point where it's going to be very hard for a first time home buyer in a traditional market. For example, the average home here in the DMV is $589,000. So depending on your financial situation or what job you have, finding something cheaper than that on a single income or on a two incomes that are mid level are really going to be tight on a lot of people. So we're seeing a lot of them forced out to suburbs like Hyattsville, Capitol Heights, some of the areas in DC that didn't have quite as much value before. For example, the Southeast Quadrant has really started to pick up, and there's been pockets of there where prices were at one point very affordable, but we've seen almost 40 to 45% appreciation rates in certain parts of Southeast DC, like the Anacostia area. And it's quickly becoming a place that I don't foresee it being that affordable for a first time home buyer for a single family home, at least over the next 2 to 3 years. I think at that
Yeah.
point, it's going to really be developed and brought up, especially with the addition of, the Purple Line, which is supposed to alleviate some of the traffic concerns we have down here. But single family starter homes are typically gearing more towards those semi-detached row homes or a fully attached row home. Even townhomes and condos are really that opportunity for your traditional first time home buyer until they can use some of that equity and scale into a single family home, unless they're willing to go a little bit outside of the Beltway or into some of the Maryland suburbs.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's still pockets though, right? Like if you wanted to live in Maryland, you could be pretty affordable and have a good commute. And if you wanted to live in like you can still get there. And that's kind of
Yes.
like you're seeing with a lot of cities, big cities, Dallas, Houston, LA, Atlanta. Like if you want to be in the city,
Hmm.
you're gonna have to pay the money, right? And so a lot of people live outside of that. It's just a crazy time. I think that people since the pandemic started have started to appreciate putting their money into real estate versus cars or versus taking vacations, right? Because of all that lockdown and everything that happened over that 2 years, people were able to save money. And because they could save money, they weren't spending like they were before. I mean, even cars nowadays, a basic pickup truck is like $60,000. Like that's crazy that you would pay that. But the reality is a lot of people have the money to purchase at that level because they haven't been spending their money to take
Mhm.
crazy trips and eat out all the time. So it's interesting to see that more and more people can afford it, but it's also interesting to see that and traditionally a lot of people that had those mid-level jobs that you spoke of, there's a lot of them that have plenty of money saved to put a down payment on a property. And so, even though you may have a mid level range of money in some places, depending on where you want to be, if you want to go into those suburbs, you have a lot of buying power because you got money to put down. And
Exactly.
it works out pretty well. And it's exciting to see that because home ownership is becoming that thing that, I mean, everybody should do it 100%. Uh, but I'm starting to see people at 19, 21, 23, like in that range between 19 and 25 are starting to purchase homes because they also see like, I want it to be mine. I don't want to live in an apartment. I don't want to have to travel through that. So there's still like home ownership's getting younger, which is great for them because that means going into the future, now you have investments. So you keep that condo you bought when you were 20 years old that was very inexpensive comparatively. And you just keep it when you are able to finally afford your single family home that you move into. And now you've got a property that you've rented out and people are starting to understand how to build that real estate portfolio, which is real estate's always going to appreciate. I mean, if the last 2 years is any indication, it's probably the safest place you can put your money, right?
Yeah, I saw an article in Forbes yesterday that for the eighth straight year, real estate was the strongest investment that you could make. I mean, obviously, we've had a monster appreciation over the last 2 years, and that's definitely an outlier in that sense. But if you can, depending on the area that you're in, if you can bank on, anywhere from that 3 to 5% appreciation rate, basic supply and demand dictates that there's only a finite amount of land in the world, specifically like
Hmm.
in the country. We know that depending on who you subscribe to, at the rate that the oceans are tearing away at the coastline, at the just absolute surplus of people that we have on this planet, there's far more people than we have land available. And as that's only going to continue to grow, that's only going to continue to be a problem in the future. And so basic laws of economics will say, those who have land and who have that property will see that value continue to increase over time.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about what got you into being an agent. I know that you said you'd bought the property, you helped fix it, the one that you rented. So that probably got you interested in how homes are built and work. But what got you interested in from your previous profession, which you said was in the fitness industry, if I remember you saying it, to now being like a realtor? Like that's a huge jump, right? It's a huge risk to take when you're jumping out. Like you said, I can't do this part time. I got to go all in. So what made you make the jump?
So during COVID, the gym that I was working with, I mean, I had a very successful career in fitness. I was able to help relocate down here, but it just the fire wasn't there anymore. When COVID shut gyms down, DC was very strict on a lot of theirs, and so I had seen, going in, my salary had been cut, not once but twice going through because the company had to stay afloat and they were having trouble getting the PPP loans, the uncertainty of going through everything, and then once the gym opened back up, there weren't a lot of people coming in. A big portion of my job was managing our sales team and our operations. Well, now with all the new standards for keeping the space clean, in the different valuations, we haven't budgeted for all of that, and there was no money that came down from the government who said, "Hey, you need to use certain type of filters, you need to use certain cleaning procedures, you need to pay for certain inspections to make sure everything's being done." And literally overnight, my budget doubled on the operational expenses. Our sales force was cut in half because people were afraid of coming in, or no one wanted to work out with a mask on. And the pressure in the industry, it was really never the greatest industry to be in. I mean, everyone goes to the gym and they're there for 45 minutes to an hour, and they have a great time while they're there. But what they don't see is all of the people that are reluctant to get in there because the country really doesn't take its health too seriously. Only about 19% of the country has a gym membership. So every day you're fighting to try to get people to join to balance that budget out. And four out of the five people that you call have zero interest. Although I was selling something that was very beneficial for people, I couldn't really reflect that message through. And so after coming home and talking to my wife, she had mentioned, "Hey, we made really good money on our real estate property. You really enjoyed what you were doing, and you were a lot happier and less stressed. Like, why don't you just take a stab at doing it full time?" So the next day, I went in, I gave my 2 week notice, and just jumped into it full time. And
Look at that. It's always the story. Your wife is always right, man.
exactly,
They're always right. They're always right. My wife is the same way.
like
So you
Alexander.
decided so when you decided to make the jump, you were already working part-time as a realtor?
Yeah,
So were you doing like open houses on the weekends or whenever you could find time?
I was doing so I was working Monday through Friday as a general manager at the gym, usually from about 9 a.m. to about 7:30. I would be doing all of my real estate emails from 7:30 to 9:30, and open houses on the weekend. But the market just moves so quickly, I could not give my clients the time and attention that they deserved. And I found that I was turning around and I was referring them out to other agents, because if someone puts their trust in me, I want to follow through for them. And if I can't provide that, I feel like there is a duty and obligation that you owe to people to let them know, hey, I'm a little in over my head. I can't resolve this for you. Let me put you in contact with someone that can. Because at the same point in time, it's a very competitive market, that they need to rely on me for that expertise. And if I can't be there, I had to give it to somebody else. So
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Not many people would do that. Many people would just struggle to hang on because they see the light at the end of the tunnel for the closing table. So it just speaks even more volumes to how you do things on why so many people want to work with you because you're not afraid to tell them like, listen, you're going to have to, talk to someone else. That's cool. So when you going from the gym into the real estate, you were part-time going to full-time. Um, were you still in the same place? Was the transition difficult for you, or do you feel like your experience? Because this is what I've heard from many people, and I tell a lot of people that do jobs like you were kind of in a sales job already,
mhm.
right? Like general manager of a gym, you need people to do memberships. Um, were you able to leverage the experience you had from the fitness industry and the people you knew there to help you grow your real estate business?
Um, Not really. Unfortunately, in the fitness industry, you deal with a lot of entry level folks. College kids or kids just out of college that are looking for their first job, and a lot of part-time employees. So a lot of the network that I had within there wasn't necessarily ready. So what I found my niche was working with all of them to get them into better financial situations through their rentals. With COVID, there was a huge opportunity to allow people to break their leases because of the pandemic. And with that, when people were moving out of larger buildings, it was a really good opportunity to talk to a lot of these kids and let them know, hey, unless you're immunocompromised, from all the signs we're getting, you're really not at that big of a risk. People leaving these condos and leaving apartments is presenting a huge opportunity. You can get out from underneath your $2,400 month rental for your one bedroom, and I can find you something for 1800 dollars that you're going to be able to save that money. Let's put you on a savings plan over the next year. So you're putting that money away, and I can introduce you to a couple. I did some first time homebuyer seminars and educated them on, great, we can put you in a better financial situation now. A year from now, we're going to be able to use that money that you're saving, and we're going to roll that into a single family home or a condo for you, where now you're going to get equity, and just showing them the illustration on forced equity, on appreciation, and how much money that they could make rather than lose on rent and put them in a better situation. It took a while. It took, 12 to 18 months before that played out. But what it did do is once those people trusted me and they got into that position and they saw the results, then it was, hey, can you do the same thing for my friend? I have a brother or sister, and referrals just started coming out of the woodwork because I took that time and I put them in a better position financially and was able to help leverage real estate for them and show them in real time how it could make a difference.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I mean, even though they weren't ready now, I like the fact that you approached it as and we kind of do this too on our team. Just because we tell you no, like I can't do this for you, it doesn't mean you can't ever. It just means we can't do it right now. So let's make a plan. Let's come up with a way to get this done so that we can make it happen at a later time. So not now, but in the future we can. And so I mean, it's smart, right? And then in the DC area, there's a lot of kids that do a lot of things that are very smart, right? If you're going into the political realm or you're into the financial realm, you're very smart with what you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
So I'm sure it just pays off there that, they see the value in what you're telling them, right? They learned all this stuff in school, and half the time in school, we're like, I'm never going to use this again. And now my realtor's telling me everything they taught me in school. So it must be true, right? So I mean, that's interesting to hear that end of it. I know a lot of people would have just completely forgot about the industry they came from. They would have never even, thought to look at it. Like I was in the Navy for 20 years. So, when I got into the industry of, doing mortgage or real estate and all those things into that sector, those are the people that I called and talked to. I know them. And I know that a lot of times military guys don't have a plan, man. They just don't. If you're an enlisted guy and lower, 9 times out of 10, you're not ready. But if you talk to someone who's an officer, they do a really good job in the military preparing officers for the future, right? Enlisted guys, it's time to go to work. That's what we do. So trying to educate them is kind of the same route, right? Is like letting them know, here's what your benefit is. This is what you qualify for. These are the things you need to do to put them on that plan like you did. And then they're ready eventually, and it works well.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it's very important not to get telling people no is always a hard thing. And just because it doesn't work now, it's very important that we follow that up with, hey, unfortunately, this isn't right for you now. Here's how we can do it, and give them a couple different options. Because at the end of the day, it always falls on that responsibility and accountability of the client, in making sure that they're following through with that. But where I can come in handy and make sure that I'm doing that is setting up that plan with them and then following up every month, just checking in, even if it's a 2-minute phone call, an email, a text. Hey, just wanted to make sure that, we're sticking to, do you have any questions? Where are we at currently? Here's some new programs. Hey, by the way, this is Matt who works over with Mutual of Omaha. It'd be great if you started the conversation so he could better position you in making those connections and really being not a gatekeeper, but I like to think of myself as a connector. If I can connect people in different industries and connect people that can help each other, we can all grow together because there's plenty to go around. It doesn't have to be a win lose situation all the time.
Yeah, I tell a lot of people that I work with, they're always talking about, and I don't know why, but sometimes people get frustrated when they're doing anything in any job. Like, well, this guy I'm working with gave this person to go over here. When you start to connect people in different areas, like in our industry, mortgage, realtor, insurance, things like that, title companies, whatever you're working with, right? People get mad when it's not coming from that direct person. And I try to tell everybody I know, when you work with a really good realtor, just like you, Patrick, a really good realtor, they are a Rolodeck for success. And that means I don't care what you need. I don't care if you need a title guy, you need a finance guy, you need to find a good insurance, flood insurance, mortgage broker, whatever it is, a good realtor in another part of the country. They're a Rolodeck for success. And if you allow that realtor to do that, right? Or if I was the guy that did it, everybody wins. So I got to tell people all the time, if that realtor's connecting people to do good things, let them go. But I don't know why people get frustrated because it wasn't their referral. And it's like, well, maybe you should call the guy that they referred your client to and establish a relationship with them. And they'll probably help you in the same manner that they helped Patrick. Obviously, if Patrick has the established relationship for years, not in the same level, but they're in the business to help people do what you're going to refer them for. They're happy to help you, right? Nobody can ever get enough business. And so that's why it's really interesting to see how people get worked up about who gives the referral. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
100%.
crazy.
I feel like I'm trying to be a lot more proactive and active on social media, but one of the big recurring themes I've seen over the last couple weeks, particularly in my industry, has been, it's so competitive. As a buyer's agent, I can't win a single deal. My clients are getting frustrated. I can't get enough clients because there's so many people that work in real estate. I don't know enough people. I moved down to DC 4 years ago, and I am doing more than okay. And the reason I can attribute that is because the same way where we met. We've got two ears and one mouth for a reason. Listen to your clients first. Listen to if they know somebody or if they don't know someone. If they know someone, we had our first common client, Matt, ironically,
Yep.
with Matthew.
Ironically, right? Yep.
But Matt had when I met Matt at an open house. We started talking to each other, going through. He had asked for a couple recommendations for lenders, which I was happy to provide him. But he had mentioned he had already spoken with you. You had the veteran connection, and your product was really great. And just looked at it apples to apples after I called you and said, "Hey, Matt, I just got off the phone with Matthew. He seems like he's got everything together. He was able to back and verify everything up. He's very responsive. If you're comfortable going with him, let's make this happen." And from there, we were able to get Matt a steal of a deal right on Capitol
Oh
Hill.
yeah.
And we've got a couple referrals out of that we're continuing to work together on.
Yep.
I didn't know you from a hole in a
Absolutely.
wall before that. And had I been so hard pressed to say, nope, these are the lenders that I know, these are the lenders that I work with, you got to go through them. One, that deal probably doesn't happen. We're probably still out looking. And two, it just certain doors aren't open, like this one. So it's very important that people are open and they listen, because ultimately the client's needs come first. And although I may have a couple people that could do the job, it's all about relationships and trust. And so if you can bridge
Yeah,
that, by all means.
for sure. I'm really glad that I'm really glad to hear what you said just a minute ago. And the thing that I don't know, I guess I can go on a soapbox for a second. As a person that works in the industry with a lot of realtors, the thing that frustrates me sometimes is when I'm talking to a client and we help them get pre-qualified or they're going to go search for a home, right? And they have a realtor. Well, I've already done the upfront work. They're good. We're going to be able to help them. It kills me when realtors are like, well, you need to talk to my guy. Well, okay, that's cool. You can talk to your guy. But what kills me and what I really appreciate about working with you, Patrick, is one, you've always been upfront with me to go, hey, look, I have other people I work with too. If I can help you, I will. But I want to make sure that all of my partners understand they're important to me. I love that because it lets me know that we're not trying to do something here that's like it can only be me. And I think too many, in a lot of cases, realtors try to go with one person all the time. And what you're going to find out is maybe they're not the best conventional loan guy, or maybe they're not the best for flood insurance rates, or maybe they're not the best to close $1 million deal at settlement in the title area, right? Like everybody has a unique ability. And what I appreciated was like when you called me, I already knew, right? I was getting the job interview, right? 100% when you work with any realtor or anyone in the industry. The first conversation you have is the job interview. And the thing that our team does is, what questions do you have? I'll answer all of them. Oh, and by the way, if I don't know, I'm going to tell you I don't know. I'll go find the answer. We'll get it done and it's fine. But what I appreciated was we had Matt, we sent him your way, and I got to work with you. I was like, man, this realtor's and I told everybody I worked with Patrick, he's amazing. I said because we just communicate with each other and that's it. and stay in touch, do our thing. But what kills me all the time is when the realtors are like, "Oh, this other guy's way better," and sometimes they're like, "You didn't even give me a chance. Like, you don't know anything about me. I probably could do just as good, or if not better, than the other guy." It's sad because that also leads to me seeing a lot of times, unfortunately, that same realtor comes right back around in like 2 or 3 weeks, and they're like, "I need help." Right? This other guy couldn't get it done, and 100%, I'm still going to help you as much as I would have helped you in the very beginning. And you can never say it, but sometimes it's like, well, we could have already been done, right?
Mhm.
But we went around it. And so I just, again, from me to you, I appreciate just how you work, the professionalism that you carry, and just the honesty by which you do things. Is like, this is what we're going to do. And we're working with a mutual client right now. And I mean, he's got a couple of options. That individual is going to choose to go who if they go with to do their business. And it's okay. Like, it's okay. And I think that's, if I was to say anything about myself, that's the difference on me as a professional in my industry opposed to other people. If that client goes to someone else, there's not going to be a phone call going, "What happened? What about it?" It's fine. You're not going to win everything. You just need to be available and ready, right? When the people you work with need you. And that's what it's all about. And I think that if more people approached it that way, then we would probably have a better uh, professionalism in the industry, because you and I have both talked a lot of times about seeing listings out there, seeing information that's being put out, or you get a client that comes to you that's maybe looked in the past and goes, "Oh, this is what my realtor told me before," and you're like, "Whoa, everything they just told you, put it in the recycle bin." None of that's true, right? And it's just frustrating because of the low barrier to entry in
Mhm.
real estate, that you're not always going to get someone that has the same level of care that you do. Like, I want to help people. Like, what other realtor is going to take young kids that are entry level employers, right? Employees that can only afford a $30 a month gym membership, like that's the biggest bill they have, and put them on a path to purchase a home. Most realtors are going to be like, "Oh, you can't buy right now, I'm out." And like, I mean, you do this job to help people, right? And I know that's why you
Exactly.
do it. And not enough people do it. And it's frustrating, but that's why I like our mission. Like, I don't need to be your everyday lender. I just need to be the one that helps your veterans, right? Because that's the most difficult one. Everybody thinks it's really not, but everybody thinks it is. But because we understand the language, we're really good at doing it. And so we just want to make ourselves available for that. I don't need to, and that's what I tell a lot of, I don't need to be your everyday guy. Yes, I can do them. I just want to help your veterans, right? From me as a veteran to them as a veteran, and it works well.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point because I mean, as you know, I'm working currently with two veterans. Veterans have been a big part of it. It's not necessarily something I went out and targeted. I've kind of fallen into that niche area, but I feel like a lot of that has come to me because I don't say no, and I try to work around and figure out how we can make it help. I will. I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say this, but I think that there's probably 75% of the realtors out there around the DMV, especially over the last 2 years, have told clients, "Hey, yes, you're entitled to your veteran benefit with the VA loan. However, this market is too competitive. This market is too crazy. You need to go get a conventional because that's the only way you can compete." And if you
Yeah.
just stop for 1 second and think about what you just told someone, hey, they put everything on the line for you in this country, and you're telling them one of the benefits that they get from that is totally out of the window because you are too busy and you can't frame and figure out a way to make that work for them. It's very selfish. And so, in this particular, our first client, Matt, the first question in speaking with you was, "Hey, can you explain to me some of the nuances and change and things that have changed, and let me tell you how I'm interpreting it and what
Yep.
I'm seeing right now, and how can we frame this to put him in a position to win?" And you know what? We beat out multiple offers with a veteran loan, which is pretty unheard of the last couple of years. But having that
Yeah.
attitude and that frame and knowledge is power, don't take the easy way and say, "It's a little bit more paperwork for me," or "It's too tough. I don't wanna take that because it's gonna be too time consuming. Come back to me with a conventional." Ask what
Yeah, I
you can
think
do for that
the
person.
biggest piece of advice that I give realtors all over the country that we talk to is I ask them a scenario. Every one of them, like when I start working together with them, whether it's a listing agent that's saying, "Ah, VA loans are too hard," or it's a buyer's agent that we're passing a client to, or the first conversation, right?
Mhm.
And I'll work them through and I ask them, "What do you feel about VA loans?" Right? Because that's what we do. And a lot of the times they're like, "Oh, in this market, you got to be a conventional loan or an FHA loan," right? And they say FHA, and I love when they tell me FHA because I say, "Okay, if you were your client and you served for 4 years and you're eligible, you're out now, you make pretty good money, you have $100,000 saved in the bank, and you only need 20 to purchase a home. You still have a lot of money in the bank. However, someone comes up and tells you, well, because you served your country and you did it the right way, you now have the right and you've earned the right to buy that house with zero down payment. So we're not going to take any of your 100,000. So now you have a choice that you can give away $20,000 or you can save that. Which one would you do?"
Oh,
And they're like,
save
"Well, I
that
wouldn't
all
give it
day.
up." And I'm like, "But you keep telling these people not to use a VA loan and to waste all their money. Like that's crazy to me." And let's be real, a lot of veterans, we don't save money because we've got the VA loan. We don't have tens of thousands of built up, assets. Like we have TSP accounts, which is 401k, but for the most part, like we're not saving a ton of money, right? Most military families are typical American families, right? The wife, they got kids, they got, it's just the way it goes.
Mhm.
So when you look at those realtors, I ask them all the time, even still, if you were to go buy a car and they told you to buy this car, this is the car you've always wanted to buy, and you have money in the bank, and they go, "Hey, we can sell you this car and you can do it zero money down, or you can do it with 15% down." Well, which one are you going to do? They're like 0%. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I always try to tell the realtors too, like, you do realize that if you have a conventional loan product or even an FHA, your lender now is a little more stressed. And the reason they're stressed is now I have to verify 3.5 to a minimum of 5% assets in the bank. That doesn't include your earnest money, your inspection money, your appraisal money, your termite, whatever inspect septic, well, whatever kind of property you're buying, that is has to be in the bank already. Like they can't just get that and deposit it. It's got to be seasoned, it's got to be in there. Or I can tell you this person's got to put no money down and they're good to go. And when I've started to explain it like that to realtors, then they kind of understand and they see it. David, who is our trainer, David Smith, our VP of military operations, when he teaches the class, has a good scenario. Like we've called listing agents and talked to them about the deal. And there's been times where the listing agent goes, "Well, can you call and talk to the owner because I think they'd rather hear it from you?" And I'm like,
That's your job.
"Absolutely. Absolutely." 8 out of 10 times, there's a military connection to that seller and their family member or they personally served. And there's probably half the time their home loan is on a VA. But the real estate agent, to your point, hears what everybody says in the marketplace and they just make this determination that if you don't have $50,000 in the bank, you can't buy a house. Well, those people are going to lose in the VA market. And to be honest with you, through this whole pandemic, who's been the strongest buyer in the marketplace? The military people, because they're not getting fired, right?
Mhm.
Like they're going to keep that employment. And so that's why we do what we do, because it just makes it so much easier. But to your point, we hear all the time people are like, "Oh, well, I've been," veterans will tell me, I've got like I got like 15% saved to the home price that I want to purchase." First question, "Are you saving 20% so you can avoid mortgage insurance?" They're like, "Yep." I'm like, "Why would you do that? You could have bought a house 3 years ago now because you saved money you don't have to spend." And I mean, they're mad. They're happy they can buy. I mean, obviously, they're in a better financial position, right, when they do that.
Yep.
But they could have had home ownership so much sooner. And it's sad to see it, that people just,
Yeah,
they take advantage of it.
like every facet of life, education is the key. And as you pointed out earlier, getting into real estate is it's a relatively low barrier to entry, and there's a reason. 81% of us are out of the industry within 18
Yeah.
months. I've been in longer than 18. I'm not going anywhere, but that reason is because people generally don't tend to continue to educate themselves or network or find that connection. And if you can work with a veteran specifically around the VA program and you tell yourself, hey, like I ratified a VA loan last night, in the entire context of the situation going in multiple offers. Yes, there is an appraisal aspect. They are doing 0% down, but we've increased our earnest money deposit to cover that. We've already done the research in the pre-work. We know this appraisal is going to hit, so we're fine throwing in an addendum, risking this earnest money deposit for it. We've already gone through and we know that nothing is going to get flagged for safety. There's nothing that is going to do this. Additionally, I've already talked to the lender, and we can guarantee that we will get our loan commitment within 21 days, so we can swing a 28-day close if need be. And a lot of times when the selling agent turns around and they hears this, or excuse me, they hear that, and they can turn around and call the lender up and verify that and say, wow, all of my legwork has been done because the buyer side has already gone and done this for me. All we have to do is sign. It's pretty much a guarantee. But if you leave any of those steps along the way to chance and you don't communicate that, well, then yeah, a VA loan could look difficult the same way an FHA could, or the same way a conventional is. But it's all
Yeah, I
about
was going to
how you
say,
prepare it.
I think in my experience, just being on the team that I'm on and the way that our team, you know, runs our business model per se, um, everything that you just described, we do when you send us an application.
Hmm.
Like we're not doing that after we've sent your loan to get disclosed and start working on it. No, we verified we've looked at assets, we've looked at employment, we've looked at pay stubs, we looked at like anything an underwriter would need to say yes, we do that up front. So that when we have the conversation with a listing agent or even you as the buyer's agent, because we have to interview for the job, like we've done all the legwork. Yes, it might take me a day or two longer to give you a prequal than the 45 seconds that another lender will do just off word of mouth. But the reason for that is I'm verifying everything. I would much rather tell your client and you that they can go purchase because I've verified all their documents and there's no surprises than for us to get under contract with an addendum on an appraisal that says, hey, we'll lose this $10,000 in earnest money when we only had to put down 2,500 so we could secure the deal, and the lender going, oh, you know what? We didn't even check that or whatever, right? We didn't pull the certificate of eligibility for the veteran, or we didn't verify the assets on the conventional deal. And then it goes away. But a lot of people's concern is the appraisal in a VA loan, but they don't realize a VA appraisal is an FHA appraisal. It's the same thing. They're looking at the house. All this mythology around VA inspectors telling you you're going to have to fix everything on an inspection is bananas. And the reason it is I mean, an FHA inspection, like the one that we closed with Matt, hey, I'm really concerned about this porch. I said, okay, well, if the back porch is a huge concern, we just need to go ahead and tell the listing agent, which we both did in an email.
Hmm.
Hey, just so you know, if the inspector for the appraisal comes out and says, hey, this porch is just unsafe and not fit for the buyer, meaning it's a safety hazard, then they're going to ask you to replace it. But if it needs to be painted because, it's been out in the weather, they're not going to make you replace something that doesn't need to be replaced. And so a lot of people think that anything that comes on a home inspection, I'm going to have to fix on a VA. And a lot of that is because there's agents out there that have done really good negotiations for their clients and gotten everything fixed. And the way they did it is they said, we're on a VA, so you have to fix it all, which is not true, 100%. But that's how they framed the request or the rebuttal to what they wanted fixed. And so that puts a lot of bad taste in people's mouths, thinking that these are going to be difficult. But I mean, it's really not. I mean, 28 days, 30 days is easy for us. And the reason is because, just like the lender that you just spoke of that's doing the deal there, we verified everything up front. We have everything we need to close. The only thing we're probably going to need is the appraisal, an updated pay stub, and an updated bank statement. Once we got those, we're ready to go. And the only thing we're really waiting on is the appraisal. And it's like clockwork, but I like to hear too what you just said about, like, let me frame this VA offer, right? Let me explain to the agent like how this works, because the agents don't understand. Once you tell someone, hey, we can put an addendum in for this appraisal, and let's say, if you called me and said, hey, I think this appraisal is going to be $5,000 short based off what we're offering, my first question is the veteran willing to pay the difference?
Mhm.
Yes. Write the offer.
And a lot of times what agents on the other side don't necessarily understand is because they're putting 0% down, that doesn't mean they're putting 0% down because they don't have the money.
Yeah.
It strengthens the offer. You know, if
Yep.
in my market down here, it's not uncommon to, have to go on some of these this is going to turn a lot of people off, but it's not uncommon to have prices go 100, 200, $300,000 over ask. And in turn, where does that appraisal gap come in? Well, if a veteran's using a VA loan and doing 0% down, they probably they have just as enough, if not more, power to cover that appraisal gap if they really want it, because they can use that 5 or 10% that Joe Smith on a conventional is using for their down payment. We have that 5 to 10% to cover. So if it
Yep.
comes to it, we're serious about this house. We'll cover it. The appraisal, yeah, it might come in low, but we have the money to cover it. If the appraisal comes in low for them, you're going to have to go back and they're going to have to source a lot more of that funds. Do you really want that buyer to max out pulling out of their retirement contributions? Do you really want to make them
Well,
housing?
do they have enough in retirement
Yeah.
contributions to pay the down payment and the difference in the appraisal and all the above? And I think that's a good point, is like, okay, hey, I, I think the biggest and the most massive reason that people are afraid of that VA loan is because of the appraisal and because of the current state of the market. If that house is offered more, right? The VA appraiser is going to come in and they're not going to give you the value. Well, here's the reality, everybody. If it was a conventional loan, you're probably going to get the same value, because if you've got 80 to $100,000 over asking price for that property, it's not worth that. So first off, as an agent, you've taken an offer that the house isn't worth it. And I always ask those agents, like, and to learn. So you're the listing agent, and I know that your job is to get the most money for your client, and I respect that. However, when you're working with buyers, would you make an offer over 100 grand on a property and expect them to pay the difference on something that it's not worth? Like, that is a different conversation altogether. Like, the whole point is a fiduciary responsibility
Mhm.
between you and your clients. I got it. You want to make the seller the most money possible, but you're not having the conversation with the seller when the offer is accepted. Like, I hope you understand we're probably not getting to this number. And I don't think that conversation's had, which is why they just expect you to pay the difference, because so many people are being told they have to pay the difference. So they do it. And that's where we're getting all crazy. Uh, and again, too, it was like the whole pandemic era of the last 2 years, people wanting to be in their own home, not in an apartment. They didn't want to walk out the door and be face to face with somebody with uncertainty, right? So it's almost like, I'm willing to pay whatever I got to pay to get in the home. I think we're starting to even out on that a little bit, but the market's been set. And so it's going to be high no matter what. Like, going forward, you can't just, they're not going to come in and reduce the price that was paid in the past. Like, that would be a bombshell. So it's going to stay steady, and it's going to even continue to increase. So people, like, especially agents, understanding a veteran can pay that difference makes more VA loans win. Just that alone. Like, they can pay the difference. Nobody, and they can get a gift to do it if they want. So on a VA loan, they don't necessarily always have to have all the money in the bank. They have family members or friends or people that are like family that can give them a gift. They can get it.
And
It's way more lenient to help a veteran get into a home than an FHA or a conventional product. But that goes back to what you said earlier, Patrick, on like agents educating themselves. They don't continue to learn. I did one conventional deal. It went super smooth. So that's the only thing I'm ever going to accept. And it's like, man, you're not diverse then in being,
you're missing out on a lot.
yeah, you know how many clients you're not servicing. Like you're worried about your gross commission income at the end of the year. The reality is your GCI is going to suffer because you're only in that basket. Like you need to jump into the other ones and learn how they work. People are just afraid to do new things, right? And I think some people feel like if I worked with all those people, like they think if I work with conventional FHA and VA clients, I'd just be overwhelmed. And it's like, nah, not really. You still have the same amount of people because you probably have two that could do VA right now that you're forcing conventional. You probably have one money wise, it'd probably be more thrifty financially to put them into an FHA where they don't have to put 5%. They only got to do 3.5%. That's as an agent doing what you do all the time. What's the best fit for you? Let me put you into the best position possible. Again, that low barrier to entry means people, one, honestly don't know to do it. They just don't know. They've never been taught. They jumped in here. They had three friends that wanted to buy a house. They did the whole Step Brothers thing where I got my real estate license for S's and gigs, and I'll do it for you on 3/4 commish because we're family, right? And then there's other people that come in because they really want to do it, but sometimes they go into the wrong brokerage and they don't get the right mentorship and training. And then there's the 1%, the people that reach out and educate themselves and talk to people and attach themselves to successful people. It's just another microcosm of what society and the corporate world is as a whole. But the gap is just so much larger in real estate because everything costs money. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you're like, I don't work at the gym anymore. They're not paying my salary to be able to sit down and coach these people on how to do their job. If I sit down and coach you, I'm losing money. Right. And so I think that's where that gap starts to grow because once somebody figures it out, there's not always a return to that education on the bottom end for the people that are just starting. Right. It's interesting to see how that roller coaster goes, you know?
And to your point, you just brought up a very good one. I just wanted to share this. I mean, I'd love to work with you if you're in the DC market, but if you're in a different market, have you if you're working on a VA loan and you're having trouble getting through to that, where I've found success is working with these clients is going and saying, hey, you liked this house, not they accepted another offer. Well, if I'm as a buyer's agent doing my homework, I'm finding out, hey, this house is listed for 750. Did you settle somewhere, north of 800? They'll tell you. They won't tell you the exact terms because it's under contract. But a lot of agents will be like, "Hey, we had an offer that escalated, somewhere between 810 and 830. Completely clean, no contingencies. Okay, not a problem. Matt, do you really like that house? Do you want that? I think that there's a decent chance that that falls through because from the numbers that that agent conveyed to me, it may not make the best sense. Let's throw in a backup offer over there. We can frame that as a VA to make sense. And, it's not a huge success rate, but I'd probably say about 20% of the time, you'll get a call back from that agent that says, hey, our current deal is looking really shaky. We want to go under contract with your backup deal. Is your person still okay with that? And it gives a little bit of that leverage back to that vet to say, you know what, we were at that point. We think the appraisal might have caught up a little bit. Can we adjust our offer price and maybe get that for around 800? You're still going to get it above asking price, what it was originally listed for, but you're probably going to get it at a cheaper point than what someone overextended for. So it's a
Well,
win-win.
especially if this current deal is going to fall out, because we both know that the agent does not want to put it back on the market. Because the moment that you put it back on the market, now people, even if it was a finance issue for the borrower, right? That's not what people are thinking. That's another misconception in the real estate industry why people don't reach out to the listing agent and go, "Hey, I saw it's back on the market. What happened?" I don't need to know exactly, but you tell me, "Oh, their financing fell through and it was bad and it just didn't get done." Like, "Oh, okay." Then I'm telling the borrower it was a financing problem, not an inspection problem. So there's nothing wrong with the house that I know of. They just couldn't afford it. So let's go take a look, right? people just automatically assume, oh, the house is falling down, it's broken, there's something's going to break and it's going to be bad, they needed a new roof, and you're like, man, where did all that come from? Why don't you just ask the agent for the inspection? Because if they were given the inspection during the process, I don't know if the DMV area is different than Texas, but if the agent received the inspection and now I my buyer that wants to make an offer would like to see it, and the agent has, you got to disclose that you had the inspection, and now I can take a look at it, and now the borrower can truly do an offer and go, hey, based off this inspection, I'm good to go. We don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Now I don't need to do another one.
Mm.
And that saves the veteran or the client or whoever more money, right? I don't have to pay for these things now. If I'm okay with it, I'm okay with it.
But use that to your advantage. If you're in a different part of the country that maybe it's, less competitive, maybe it's more competitive, but don't let your folks get discouraged because if someone misses out on something, utilize that
Hmm.
backup strategy and really present that VA loan as a safety net. Because if the selling agent's looking at that and say, "Hey, I've got a backup offer. We can take a chance on this other offer because yes, it's a little shaky because we have something in our back pocket." Even if you're under contract and something else, if that's your dream home, you can always a good agent should put an exit strategy in there so you can pivot.
Yeah.
And if it
Well, for
gives
sure.
that
For
leverage
sure.
back to you and you can use that VA to strengthen it, by all
Yep.
means, make sure your agent's doing that.
Well, and I mean, think about it this way. Oh man, the last deal that we had was, call it conventional, and it fell through. If my backup offers a conventional, a seller is probably going to be a little concerned, right? With the same offer coming through that just fell through, and just simply saying this one's a VA, the lender, I've talked to them, everything's good, simply because it's a different type of loan. To your point, now makes your veteran, or even if it's like from conventional to FHA, it makes it a little stronger because now the seller's not thinking, well, that one didn't just go through, the next one's going to be bad, or whatever the case may be. You're giving different options. And, that's a good point that people listening should think about. Like, if in your market you can present backup offers,
Mhm.
especially with as fast as they're going, I've never really thought of it that way, to go, hey, let's just submit a backup offer. I mean, at the end of the day, the veteran's probably going to have to increase their price point, even though they've submitted that backup offer, or whoever the client is. They're going to have to increase their price point. But if my backup offer is in at 25,000 less than what I'm currently looking and it comes through, I just saved money because my agent did the work to get me into something that could possibly fall through, because deals do fall through more than they go through. Even in today's market, it happens all the time.
Yeah, and most of the time when a deal does follow through, it's because of the financing. And so if you're presenting that to your seller and to your point, hey, a conventional fell through, we got another conventional. Well, they're going to come across the same exact obstacle. And what's this new lender going to do? If you didn't vet them before, why are they suddenly vetted now? And where's that difference come from? However, if you turn around, hey, it was conventional, it's VA, but this is why this is actually a stronger offer because they're putting zero down. So they take that 5 to 10% that our conventional had, and that's their safety net to bridge that gap. They have enough to cover that. And
Yep. And a good lender will tell the listing agent, we verified those funds, they have them, we're not worried, we're good to go, right? And so, you know, it's just communication. I think that's what wins 100% in this industry, is communicating. But the thing that we can get better at is people being open to learn new things, or be willing to listen. Well, I mean, the world as a whole is not willing to listen to things sometimes, but being able to listen to what someone's presenting you and really care to understand what they're telling you, right? And then ask good questions. Like, that's the other part. A lot of times I've seen agents will go, they'll champion for their client and give this agent all the information on why their offer's good. And the end of the call is the agent just going, oh, okay, thanks. And I'm like, they didn't listen to a word you said, because they didn't ask any questions, right? Like, they weren't listening. They were appeasing you. And then now that turns into that agent. Man, I talked to somebody the other day. I can't remember. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
for follow-up and the work that goes into it. It's a hustle 9 to 5 job in real estate, is hustling all the time and making sure that you put yourself in the best position possible. Like it's a chess match.
it is. That's a perfect way to explain it.
Strategy has to be there. Well, Patrick, I mean, I I enjoyed talking to you today. It was fun. Like you have a wealth of knowledge like no other, and I think a lot of that comes from background and the way that you approach your business as a realtor. So what I would like to do now is if you could give everybody contact information and how they can get a hold of you, or maybe if they were looking to meet up with you. I don't know if you guys work in the office at your brokerage, but how can people get in touch with you? And if they wanted to set up time to speak with you, how would they go about doing it?
Sure. My email address is patrick.reynolds, Reynolds, at compass.com. Or you could try me. My cell phone's 508-450-4481. I'm also pretty active on social media. So just either give me a follow or shoot me a DM. My handle is Patrick Reynolds, RE. Uh, or easiest way is probably our website. I work on a team with two other great realtors, synergysoldit.com. And like I said, we service all of DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So particularly if you're a veteran, would love to help you out and at least interview with you to give you a shot.
Absolutely. I guarantee if you're a veteran listening to this in the DMV area, that's a new one for me. Normally I associate the DMV with bad stuff, but now it's good. Uh, if you're in that area and you're looking for an agent to help you out, Patrick Reynolds personal experience by far goes above and beyond for his veterans. He makes sure they understand the process, and I promise you, you'll know everything that's going on in that transaction. And he's going to give you the information that also equals to whether or not it's a good idea to go into that particular home, if you should wait, whatever it is. He will advise you, and he will be there. And I promise you, you'll build a good bond for life because you just do a great job, Patrick. Again, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. And if there's ever anything we can do for you, as always, we're here to help.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.